Welcome to the Good Seed Project. We now move on to commandment number 2 of the 10 commandments. You shall not make yourself an idol. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. The key verses are from Exodus 20 verses 4 to 6. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, Yahweh, or the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Exodus 20 and verse 23. Do not make any gods to be alongside me. Do not make for yourselves gods of silver or gods of gold. So the prohibition applies to idol in any form. Because God has no visible form, John 4:24, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Any idol intended to resemble God would be a sinful misrepresentation of him. Since other gods are not to be worshipped, according to commandment number 1, making idols of them would be equally sinful. Why? Because the jealousy of God demands this. The jealousy of God demands exclusive devotion to himself. The jealousy of God demands judgment on all those who oppose him. And the jealousy of God also demands vindication of his people. God also promises to punish those who make idols or worship them to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Those Israelites who blatantly violate God's covenant and thus show that they reject the Lord as their king will bring down judgment on themselves and their entire households. In those days, an Israelite or Jewish household was usually extended to 3 or 4 generations. Psalm 109 verse 12. So God says that he will punish the children for the sins of the fathers. How does it happen? This happens through inherited weaknesses, poverty, diseases, and shortened lifespan. So when the parents disobey God, in some way it is bound to affect the children. We are called to love the Lord. That means show loyalty to God. And the opposite of love here is hate. That is the rejection of God. So if we love God, we'll be loyal to him. If we hate him, we reject God. So the Lord says, love me and keep my commandments. In the treaty language or the covenant language of the ancient Middle East, the word love stands out. The love is owed to the great king who was a conventional king, and this is a conventional term for total allegiance, total trust, and totally obedient service to him. So not only the worship of idols, but their manufacture is also forbidden. So this includes pictures, images, and statues used in worship. However, it does not prohibit all pictures and statues since the tabernacle contained carved cherubim. But the word of warning is that even where the cherubim was permitted to be carved, the children of Israel were not supposed to worship the carved cherubim. In addition, God also told Moses to make a serpent out of bronze. In Numbers chapter 21 and verse 8, God told Moses to make a serpent out of bronze and put it on a pole, and any Israelite who looked at that serpent would not be affected by the poison of the fiery serpents which God had sent into the Israelite camp because of their constant disobedience and grumbling. At this point, we need to also be mindful that a vast group in Christianity under the Catholic Encyclopedia distinguishes between dulia and latria. Dulia is paying honor to God through contemplation of objects such as paintings and statues, and latria is adoration directed to God alone. This, however, does not allow anyone to worship objects, paintings and statues. You cannot pay honor to God through contemplation of objects. God hates it and God prohibits that. In fact, the sin that is most condemned in the Bible, of course, all sins are condemned in the Bible. The sin that is most condemned in the Bible is the sin of idolatry. The contemplation of objects is wrong, as once again, God is a spirit, and those who worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. John chapter 4 and verse 24. So this commandment also means that God should come first in our lives as the center of our daily living, worship, trust, and gratitude. So some of us may not bow down before graven images, statues, or other gods, but nonetheless, we may replace the living God in our lives with other idols such as money, material possessions, power, pleasure, prestige, fame, extreme wishes, passions, cravings, etc. So these things tend to become the idols in our lives. In other words, anything we may place on a pedestal above God becomes a god of our lives or becomes an idol of our lives. So in such people's lives, their treasure is their God and a God that shall perish with them, because idols will eventually perish. We'll also look at some of the characteristics of idols. Idols are lifeless, according to Deuteronomy 4 and verse 28. There you will worship man-made gods of wood and stone, which cannot see or hear or eat or smell. Habakkuk chapter 2 verses 18 to 20. Of what value is an idol, since a man has carved it, or an image that teaches lies? For he makes it trusts its own creation, but makes idols that cannot speak. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life, or to lifeless stone, wake up. Can it give guidance? It is covered with gold and silver. There is no breath in it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Idols are also perishable. Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 20. A man too poor to present such an offering selects wood that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not topple. Idols are helpless. Isaiah 45 and verse 20. Gather together and come. Assemble, you fugitive from the nations. Ignorant are those who carry about idols of wood, who pray to gods that cannot save. Idols are unworthy of worship. Acts 17 and verse 29. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by man's design and skill. Idols are degrading. Romans 1, 22 and 23. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. A few questions for us. Do you have any idols in your life? Have you given your allegiance to any created being rather than the Creator? So this concludes our study on the second commandment. Stay tuned for the next commandment, which is the third one. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow the Good Seed Project on Instagram and Spotify through the links in the description below. Thank you and God bless you.